She changed her identity 7 times to outrun him. He found her every single time. Then one accident wiped his memory clean. Another woman slipped into her place, and the man who'd chased her across 100 towns walked past her like she was nobody. But that part came later. This is where it started. The 7th time, in a bakery in Lacona, with rain on the windows and flour under her fingernails. The bell above the door jingled, and Clara didn't look up. She was kneading sourdough, the radio playing something soft and old, the kind of song that drifts in and out of a kitchen like steam. It was raining outside, the steady Pacific Northwest kind that doesn't so much fall as hang in the air, gray and persistent. Lacona was a small town 2 hours north of Seattle, and the bakery on First Street saw maybe a dozen customers a day. She'd been here 3 weeks, long enough to learn the regulars' orders, short enough that they still called her Jenna. The footsteps stopped at the counter. 1 cinnamon roll, a man said, and whatever you're drinking. Clara's hands stilled in the dough. She knew that voice. She'd know it in a crowd of 10,000, in a dream, in the gray. She looked up. Julian Croft stood on the other side of the glass cake, rain dripping from the hem of his charcoal coat onto her clean floor. His hair was longer than the last time, 3 months ago, in a hair salon in Port Townsend, where she'd been sweeping up cuttings and he'd walked in like he owned the place. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, but his gaze was the same, steady and tense, like he was seeing something nobody else. Hi, she opened her clip. To the regulars, old Mr. Henderson with his daily coffee, the tourist couple sharing a he was just another customer. To Clara, he was the end of the world, arriving 3 weeks ago. Her voice came out. Julian glanced at her name tag, Jenna, in curly handwriting, and almost You always pick bakery names that start with J. Jenna, Julie. I told my PI to check every bakery between Seattle and Bellingham, with a girl named something. Took him 2. Of course. New phone, new license, new town, cash only, no social media. But she'd picked another name. It was like she wanted him to. She wiped flour off. Give me 10 minutes to close up. He did. That was the part. He didn't act. He acted like something that had missing. The drive to Bellevue was nuisance. Rain streaked the windows of his black. Clara stared out at the highway and thought about things. A line cook in Owensburg, a house cleaner in Waukesha, a pet store in Spokane, a hair salon in Port Townsend, a food truck in Tacoma. 7 identities, 12 months. 7 towns. 7 times he'd walked in like Mara, her caseworker at the shelter, had stopped being surprised at girl, Mara had said, she didn't. I believe in you. But at some point you gotta ask yourself why you keep picking places. She didn't have one that didn't fit. They were the same. Modern glass and cedar, set back on Lake Washington. Julian parked in the garage, and they went inside. The house was cold. He'd been away. He turned on the heat, hung up his coat, and walked into the kitchen like this was his day. Want coffee? I wanted why you're not angry, Clara said. She was still standing in the mudroom, wet shoes on the mat, like if she didn't step inside, made it real. Julian her. He looked at a long time. I was angry. The first 3 times. Then I was sad. Then I was tired. He paused. Been a year chasing you. More on private investigators than most people make in a decade. I've driven this state so many times I can recite the exits in order. Every time I find you, you look here to hurt you. I'm not who you're not. He pushed off the counter and walked toward her. She didn't step back. When it came down to it. He stopped an arm's length to his pocket. Small velvet box, Clara's breath caught. He opened it. A ring, simple, platinum. A single gray light. He didn't get on one knee. He just held between them. Nothing fragile. Enough with the cosplay, he said. His voice was hoarse, like he'd rehearsed and it still came out wrong. No more Jenna, no more bakeries, no more towns I have to at 3 a.m. Tomorrow we go to the courthouse. Get a marriage license, then you can decide if you want to use it or throw it in the lake. I'm not chasing you anymore, Claire. Done chasing. He took her left hand. Flour still under the nails, a burn on the wrist from the slid the ring on. It was cold. Clara stared at. She couldn't breathe. She'd imagined this 100 times, in 100 towns, in 100 identities. She'd imagined angry, desperate, cruel. She'd never imagined him tired. Never imagined him saying, I'm done chasing. Saddest thing in the world. In her apron pocket. She did it. And again. Julian was still holding hand. Look at face. Not the ring. like he was memorizing the expression she was making. "You don't have to answer now," he said. "I just needed you." The phone kept... Clara pulled it. Mara's name had screamed. She almost declined, but Mara only when something was wrong. "Give me a second," she said into the mudroom. She answered. "Mara, I can't talk right now." "Clara." His voice was tight, like she'd been running. I got off the phone with a contact at Harborview. Julian Croft was in a car accident this afternoon, on I-5 northbound heading toward LaConner. His car was hit from behind, ran off the road. They pulled him out 20 minutes ago. He's alive, but Clara, he hit his head bad. Doctors are saying retrograde amnesia. They're saying he'd not remember the last years. Clara's hand cold. The phone slipped in her grip. "What are you..." "Mara, doesn't make sense. He's right here. He drove here. She turned around. Empty. The coffee maker was... The mudroom floor was dry. No wet footprints. No coat on the hook. In the garage through the side window. The box sat on the kitchen counter. The ring gone from its slot. Clara looked down at her hand. The ring was still there, cold. Fit. Outside, kept falling. Gray instead. Like nothing had happened at all. Clara drove to Harborview in the rain. She didn't remember getting in the car. She didn't remember the ferry or the bridge or the downtown streets. One moment she was standing in an empty kitchen in Bellevue, a ring on her finger that shouldn't exist. And the next she was pulling into the hospital parking lot. Her hands shaking so bad she could barely turn off the engine. The ring was still there. She stared at it like a car tipped and cool, platinum, a single stone. It caught the fluorescent light of the ring. It was real. She could feel the weight of it, the cold metal against her. The rest of it, the rhythm, the proposal, Julian's voice saying I'm done chasing. She couldn't be sure any of it had happened. She'd been running for a year. She was tired. Maybe she'd finally cracked, but the ring was real. She took the elevator to the ICU. The floors were sterile white, the air smelling of antiseptic and bad coffee. A nurse at the station looked up. "I'm here for Julian Croft," Clara. Her voice sounded like someone else. She stopped. "Fiancée? Girlfriend? The woman he spent a year chasing?" None of it felt like something she could say out loud in a hospital. "I'm family," the nurse checked her. "Mr. Croft is in ICU, but he's not accepting visitors. Only immediate fee." "Immediate name?" "Clara Bennett," the nurse typed. Frowned. "I'm sorry, Miss Bennett, you're not on this." The only people cleared are Eleanor Croft and Vanessa. Before Clara could answer, a woman appeared behind the nurse's chin. Mid-60s, silver hair tight, a cashmere coat that cost more than Clara made. "Eleanor Croft." She looked at Clara the way you'd look at a stain. "Can I help you?" "Clara, I know who..." Eleanor's voice flat. "And I don't know what you think you're doing here, but my son doesn't know anyone named Clara. He has a concussion, he's disoriented, and he does not need this. He doesn't..." "What do you mean he doesn't know me?" Eleanor stepped closer, lower voice. "The accident caused retrogression. The last 4 years are gone. Do you understand? 4 years. He doesn't remember moving into the Bellevue house. He doesn't remember Tech Fund. And he certainly doesn't remember you." She paused. "Whatever you want him, it's over. He's with Vanessa now. They've been together for years. I'd appreciated that." Clara felt the ring press into her finger. 4 years. Exactly what she'd known him. Exactly the time he'd spent finding her in St. "I want to see him," Clara said. "No. I want to..." Eleanor didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. A guard appeared at the end of the hallway like he'd been waiting. "This woman is harassing my family. Please escort her out." The guard was gentle about it. He didn't touch her. He just stood there, big and said, "Ma'am, with me." Clara left the elevator. She didn't fight. Too stunned to fight, but on the way out, he was in a wheelchair at the far end physical therapy wing, open. A woman with chestnut hair and a tape was pushing him. Vanessa Pierce, Clara recognized ages. Head was bandaged. Thinner than she, paler. He was looking at his hands like someone else. Clara stopped. Guard stopped with her. "Julian," she said. "Jane," quiet, like she... He looked up. Met across the hallway. 20 feet of sterile fluorescent light. He stared at her. She stared at him. Willed him to recognize her. Willed it the way she'd willed to find her in every town, every bakery, end job. Brow furrowed. Just slightly, like he was trying to place a song a long time ago. Then he said, "Do I know you?" Vanessa turned. Saw her face tight. "Excuse me," she said, and wheeled Julian away, down the hall, gone. Clara gently said, "Ma'am?" She left. She sat in her parking garage for an hour. The rain had stopped. The ring was still on her finger. She turned it around and around, the stone catching the light, to figure out which was worse, that he didn't remember her, or that part of her had known it would end. Her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize. "Stay away. This is for your own good." Clara stared at the screen. She didn't know who sent it. Eleanor, Vanessa, or, impossibly, absurdly, Julian himself, typing from a hospital with 4 years of memory missing. His fingers were a number his brain had forgot. She put the phone, started the car, and for the first time in a year, she didn't drive away. 3 months later, Clara was still in Seattle. She'd expected the urge to run. It had been her reflex for a year. When things got hard, when Julian got close, when the weight of being found pressed too hard, she'd pack a bag and Mara would find her a new town, and a new name and a new job. But after the hospital, after Do I Know You, after the text, the urge didn't come. Or maybe it did, and she ignored it. She wasn't sure anymore. She got a job at a coffee shop on Capitol Hill, the kind with exposed brick and oat milk, and a tip jar that said, "We'll write your name on the cup for $1." She rented a studio apartment above a laundromat, 500 square feet, a view of a brick wall. She bought a bed from a thrift store and a coffee maker from Target, and she didn't change her name. She was Clara Bennett, for the first time in a year, and it felt like wearing clothes that were too tight after a year of loose ones. Mara called once a week. "You okay?" she'd say, and Clara would say, "I'm okay." And Mara would say, "You know you can still run. I got contacts in Portland and Boise." And Clara would say, "I know. I'm not running." And Mara would sigh, because she'd heard that before, from a lot of women, and she knew how it usually ended. Clara started investigating, not because she had a plan, but because she couldn't not. She read everything she could find about the accident. News articles, police blotters, a single paragraph in the Seattle Times that said a black SUV had been rear-ended on I-5 northbound, the other vehicle fleeing the scene. No suspects, no arrests. Julian Croft, 35, of Bellevue, treated at Harborview and released. That was it. 2 sentences, a whole life reduced to 2 sentences. She learned other things. Eleanor had announced the engagement 3 weeks after the incident. Julian and Vanessa, a spring. The society pages full of photos of them at a charity. Except Clara knew the photos were old. She'd seen that suit on Julian before, 2 years ago, at a fundraiser he'd dressed. The photos weren't new. They were from before the accident. Eleanor was selling a version of Julian's life that didn't include the last 4 years, and the press was... She found the golf club on... It was in Newcastle, a private course with a view of the lake, and Julian had been a member since... Clara sat in her car in the parking lot for 2 hours, drinking gas station coffee until... He was on the driving range. Vanessa was next to him, leaning against a golf cart, watching him balls. He looked better, healthier, the bandage gone, but he moved differently, slower, more deliberate, like he was relearning his own body. Clara got the car. She walked across the parking lot, through the clubhouse, out. A pro started to say something, but she walked past him like she belonged there. She stopped 10. He was saw her. The came down, the ball, sent it arcing in gray sky. Watch it go. Clara, she said. This was steady. She'd put it in the car. Vanessa straight. "Excuse me? This is a private..." 4 years ago, Clara said, looking at Vanessa. "Look, Julian. You walked into a restaurant on Pike Place. I was waitressing. You ordered the salmon and you said my laugh sounded like a cat you had when you were a kid. A Tachi. You said she used to sit on your homework and you'd let her because she purred loud." Julian's didn't change, but his hand, his right hand, the one holding the club, chest. Just for a second, 2 fingers pressing against his sternum, right above his heart. It was a habit. He did it when he was thinking, he was confused, when something was just out of reach. Clara had seen it 100 times. Vanessa saw it too. "I don't know what you're talking about," Julian said, but his voice would have been like words. "You don't have to remember," Clara said. "I just needed you to hear it. Someone needed to tell you those 4 years happened, that I hadn't." "Security!" Vanessa's voice was sharp. She'd pulled out her phone. "There's a woman harassing us on the range." Julian on his chest. He looked at Clara, and his mouth closed it. Then he said almost to himself, "Mochi." Clara's breath caught. The security arrived. Big. Shirt, radio crackling, and he was taking Clara's arm, gentle but firm, and walking her away. She looked back over her shoulder. Julian was still standing there, club in hand, hand watching her go. Vanessa was talking to him, sharp and fast, but he wasn't looking at her, looking at Clara. That night, someone knocked on her apartment. She opened it. The hallway was empty. On the mat, a manila envelope. She brought it inside, opened it at the kitchen table. A photograph. Julian and Clara, Bellevue Villa, by the pool. He was behind her, arms around, chin on her shoulder. They were both laughing. The sun was setting. Remember the photo being taken. But she remembered their second anniversary, the summer before she started running. On the back, handwriting she didn't recognize. 3 words. He remembers. The photograph sat on Clara's kitchen table for 3 days. She didn't touch it. She didn't move it. She made coffee in the morning and looked at it and went to work and came home and looked at it again. Julian laughing. Her laughing. The pool, the sunset. The arms around her waist. It was real. She could see the freckle on his left wrist, the one she'd kissed 100 times. She could see the scar on her own elbow from when she'd fallen off a bike in college. It was real, and someone had sent it to her. Someone who had access to Julian's house, who knew they'd been together, who wanted her to know he remembers. She called Mara. "I need you to find something for me." Mara sighed. "Girl, I am a social worker, not a private eye." "I know. But you know people. You know the system. I need to know who was on the ambulance the day of Julian's accident. I need the paramedics report." A pause. "Clara, what are you doing?" "I'm finding out if it was really an accident." Mara found the paramedic 3 days later. His name was Rick. He worked out of the Bellevue station, and he met Clara at a diner in Renton at 6 a.m. before his shift. He was in his 50s, gray beard, coffee, and he looked at Clara like he knew exactly why she was. "The report says rear-end collision," Rick said, stirring his coffee. "Other vehicle. Standard hit and run, but..." Rick looked. "But I've been doing this 22. You see a lot of rear ends. Most of them. The front car gets pushed, maybe into the next lane. Bumper damage, maybe a broken taillight. The SUV was hit so hard it spun out. Hit the median. Rolled once. The kind of impact you get from someone going 60, 70 miles an hour, not paying attention. No, that was intentional. Someone wanted that car." Clara's hands were cold at her mug. "Did you tell police?" "I told that I saw. They wrote it up as a hit and run. No suspects. Went cold." Rick paused. "There's something else. The guy in the SUV, Croft, he was conscious out. He's saying one thing. Over and over. He's waiting for me. She's waiting." We thought delirious. Cushion. But he stay. Claire. "Did someone write that down?" "Paramedics don't write down everything a head-in says." "But I remember." Rick looked at her. "You're the one he was waiting for, aren't you, sir?" "Didn't need to. She found out about it later. Mara had a cut at a law firm. Some favor. And the contact in a single page. Readable. Julian Croft had amended his last will and testament 7 before the accident. The primary benefit, Clara Bennett. The previous beneficiary, Eleanor Croft, 7 days. He changed the will, then proposed, then got hit from butt away. The math wasn't subtle. She got it on a Thursday. The housekeeper, Rosa, a woman in her 60s who worked for the club for 15 years, let her kiss. Clara found Rosa through Mara, who found her through a shelter network that Rosa used. Rosa didn't like Eleanor. She liked Clara. She'd seen Julian look at Clara, and she'd seen Vanessa look at Julian. "This stuff," Rosa said, handing Clara a key. "Second floor left. Don't be long. They'll be back at 5. Clara went upstairs. The stuff's exactly as she remembered. Dark wood, bookshelves, a desk in her car. Went straight to the bottom drawer, the one Julian never locked but he would look. She was weak. It was there, a leather book. She opened it. His handwriting, panted impatient. To the last entries. 3 weeks before the accident. I've been thinking about what the therapist said, about control, about how I call it love, and she calls it a cage. She's right. She's been right for a year. Every time I find her, I tell myself it's because I love her, but maybe it's because I'm afraid. Afraid that if she leaves, she won't come back. I'm not enough for her to stay. The next 2 weeks before, I'm going to ask her. Not like this, pacing, not dragging her back. I'm going to ask her to stay, because she wants to. And if she says no, I'm going to let her go. I don't know if I can. I have to try. The next entry. 1 week before. The last page. And then, torn out. The last page was gone. Ripped cleanly, still holding tiny white fragments. Clara set the journal. Her hand. He'd been trying. The man chased her for a year had been about to stop. And then someone had hit at 70 miles an hour. She found the medical records in the torn. Julian's because Eleanor kept everything. Discharge papers, medication lists, follow-up appointments, and there it was, circled in red, a prescription for lorazepam, twice a day for anxiety, refilled every month for the last 3 months, prescribed by Dr. Helsch, Eleanor's personal physician. Clara knew lorazepam. She'd taken it once after a particularly bad episode with Julian. Mara had insisted she seek her. It was a sedative, a strong one. Long-term use at that dosage, 2 milligrams twice for months, didn't just treat anxiety. It suppressed memory. It made it harder for the brain to form new connections, to retrieve old ones. It was one if you didn't want them to remember. She put the journal back. She was about to leave the study when the door. Julian stood in the doorway. He was wearing a sweater and jeans, socks on the hardwood floor. He looked different in his own house. Smaller somehow, less like the man who'd chased her across the state. And more than a life he didn't. Looked at her, then at the desk, then at her again from the golf course. Then Clara's mouth dry. Yes. Why are you in this? She didn't have a good answer. She had the journal, the will, the paramedics report, but none of it would say to a man who didn't remember her. I was looking at them. What? She held up the journal. This journal. You, Julian. Not recognition. Fear. His eyes went wide, his breathing, and he took a step back like the journal weapon. Oh, who are you? You have my things. He pressed his hand to his chest, the inhabit, the 2 fingers above his sternum, and upped his head. A voice from the hallway. Female, approaching fast. And who are you talking to? Vanessa. Clara looked at Julie on the floor, hand on his head, squeezed shut. She looked at the journal in her hand. She looked at the open doorway. She ran. The restraining order arrived on a Tuesday. Clara was behind the espresso machine, steaming milk for a latte, when the barista handed her a manila envelope with her name on it. She opened it between customers. Temporary restraining order. Eleanor Croft, on behalf of Julian Croft versus Clara Bennett. No contact, no communication, no approaching within 500 feet of Julian Croft, his residence, his place of business, or any vehicle he occupies. Violation, up to 90 days in jail. She read it 3 times. Then she put it in her apron pocket and kept making lattes. The social media posts started the same day. Vanessa Pierce's Instagram, 40,000 followers, society photos, charity galas, engagement announcements, posted a carousel of images. Julian and Vanessa at a restaurant. Julian and Vanessa at a gallery. Julian and Vanessa, smiling. The caption, so grateful for everyone's support during this difficult time. To the woman who has been harassing our family, please stop. We wish you healing. The comments were brutal. Stalk. Gold digger. Crazy ex, leave him alone. Clara read them all, then deleted the app from her phone. Her boss called her into the office on Thursday. We've been getting complaints. He's anonymous. Saying you're unstable. Saying you have a hit. I'm not saying I believe it, but it's a small I can't afford the She was fired by Mara came over with takeout Thai and a bottle of wine. You need to leave Seattle, she said, for the first time, not suggesting, but they're going to clue. Eleanor has money, lawyers, connections. You have a studio apartment, a ring. This isn't a fair night. Clara ate pad thai and thought it. Mara's right. Logically, practically, Mara's right. She should change her name, move to Portland or Boise or somewhere Eleanor couldn't be bothered to find her. And that was the hard thing. But she thought about Julian on the full study. His head. Fear. She thought of the journal. He'd changing. He'd trying. Written. I'm going. She thought about the lorazepam prescription. 2 milligrams twice a day. Prescribed by Eleanor. She thought about the paramedic saying that was intentional, and the will changed 7 days before the accident, and the photograph that said, I'm not running. Mara stared at her, eyed, and deep. Hey, that fight smart. I know a reporter, investigative, used to work at the Times, and does a newsletter. She owes me a favor, and knows someone else, someone who was Julian for all of this. So, David Kim was 35, Korean American, an architect with an office square. He'd been Julian's roommate at the University of Washington, his best man at a wedding ever happened, and the person who'd introduced Julian to Clara at that restaurant on Pike 4 years ago. He met Clara at a coffee in Belltown, her coffee shop. She didn't know. And he looked at her with an expression. I've been waiting for you to find me, David said. You have? Eleanor, after the accident, told me and had amnesia. Mentioned you. Told me if I cared about him, I'd stay away. I said okay, because I thought maybe it was better. Even if he didn't remember life. David paused. But then I saw engagement photos, and I saw Vanessa, and I remembered what Julie was like before he met you. Miserable, control, half alive. And I thought, this isn't better. This version of better. Will you help me? David nodded. I'll talk to Julian. I'll tell him the truth. Not your version, Eleanor's version, mine. I was there, I saw it. I saw him fall in love with you. I saw him lose his mind when you left. I saw him start to get better, right before the accident. He was going to propose. He told me, going to ask you to marry him, and if you said no, going to let you go. Clara's eyes burned. She looked down and see. They met Julian at Battle Public Library. Downtown, neutral ground, 500 feet or business. Clara stayed across the desk watching. David sat at a table, and they talked. Julian listened. He asked questions. David showed him things. Old photos on his phone, a group chat from a video, what they were saying. But she could see Julian's. The confusion, slow, careful consideration. The hand moving to his chest, again and again, like he heard what his mind couldn't. David held up his phone, played a video. Julian's face changed. Tim watched the screen. His mouth felt, his eyes widened, and then slow tears rolled down his face. He didn't wipe them. He just sat there, watching a video of himself. It was the morning of the proposal. David filmed it, at Julian's request, in the kitchen of the Bellevue villa. Julian was holding the ring box, turning it over and over in his hand, and he was talking to the camera. If I messed it up, video, Julian said. She says no, if she runs, if any of the things I'm of happen, remind me of this. Remind me that she's the only thing I've ever wanted that wasn't my mother's idea. Remind me that I love her, and if she doesn't want me, remind me to let her go. Because that's what love is. Not chasing, not controlling. Julian looked in the phone. Across the library, across 50 books and tables and floor, his eyes found Clara, standing by the reference. He hadn't moved. He was looking at him. His lips. She couldn't hear the word, but she could read them, I remember. And then the door opened. Two security guards. She walked fast, heels clicking on the marble floor. Didn't stop until she was at the table. She groaned out of his hand floor. It shattered. You, said to Julian, her voice shaking, are coming home. Now. These people are lying to you. They're manipulating you. See that? Julian. He was Clara. Julian. Vanessa's voice cracked. Please. Take his arm. He let her lead him toward the door. But as he passed Clara, 5 feet away, 4, 3, turned his head. He looked at her, and his mouth moved again. This time she heard it. Just barely. Library's quiet hum. Help me. That night, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. 3 words, help me. The engagement dinner was on a Saturday night at the Fairmont Olympic. Clara knew because Vanessa posted about it. Black tie, 200 guests, the society pages already running pre-event coverage. Eleanor had planned it as a coming out. Julian, recovered, healthy, engaged to the right woman, back in his proper life. The amnesia would be a footnote. The last 4 years would be a blank page, and Clara Bennett would be a name nobody mentioned. Clara had other plans. She stood in the bathroom of her studio apartment and looked at herself in the mirror. She was wearing a black dress. Thrift store, $15. Simple, nothing fancy. Her hair was down. She wasn't wearing makeup. Around her neck, on a thin silver chain, was the ring. She'd taken it off her finger after the restraining order. Couldn't risk it being seen. Couldn't risk another violation. But she'd never put it away. She'd worn it around her neck, close to her chest, like a secret. She took it off the chain, held it in her palm. The stone was cold. Are you sure about this? Mara said from the kitchen. She was sitting at Clara's table, eating cold pizza, looking at Clara like she was about to walk into traffic. No, Clara said, but I'm doing it anyway. You could get arrested. 500 feet, remember? The hotel is his place of business for the night. The restraining order says I can't approach him. It doesn't say I can't be in a public hotel ballroom where he's a guest. There's a difference. Eleanor's lawyer knows it. That's why it's a temporary order, not a permanent one. She couldn't get a judge to sign off on banning me from every public space and... Mara took a bite of the... You've been reading... I've been reading a lot of... David was waiting downstairs and... The reporter, Nadia, her newsletter had 20,000 subscribers and a reputation for breaking stories the Times would touch, was already at the bell. posing as a society. She had a recording device in her purse and a draft article saved on her laptop, ready to... Clara got... David didn't see. The Fairmont Olympic was all marble and chandeliers and men in tuxedos parked. Clara walked in through the main entrance. No invitation, no name list. Just her head up and her feet moving like she believed. The staff at the door stop her. Nobody stops a woman in a black dress walking like she's supposed to. The ballroom was at the end of a long... She could hear the music, string quartet, something musical, and the murmur of 200. She stopped outdoors, breath, put her hand on the palm, looked in. The room went quiet. Not at once. First the people near the door, then the table, then the next, until the silence spread like a ripple across. The string quartet off. Clara walked her aisle, past tables of people in diamonds-colored suits, past the bar, dance floor, until she Julian with her. Vanessa on his left, Eleanor on his right. He was tuxedo, his hair combed back. He looked like a man at his own engagement party who wasn't there. He coming. His hand chest. Clara stopped table. She didn't look at Eleanor. She looked at Julian, opened her palm. The ring sat there, catching a leer light. "This is yours," she said, voice carried. The ball was dead silent. "You gave it to me 4 months ago. In your kitchen in Bellevue. You set off with the cosplay. No more bakeries, no more towns. Tomorrow we go to the courthouse. You said done chasing me." A murmur rippled through the room. Eleanor stood up. "Security, sit down, Eleanor." Clara didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Your son was in a accident 4 months ago. The police called it a hit and run. The paramedic who pulled him out said the impact was intentional. 7 days before the accident, Julian changed his will. He left everything to me. You were the previous beneficiary." The murmur got louder. Face went white. After the accident, Clara continued. "Julian was diagnosed with retrograde amnesia. 4 years, but that's not all. For the last 3 months, he's been taking lorazepam, milligrams twice a day, prescribed by your personal doctor, Helen Marsh. Lorazepam at that dosage, memory recovery. It makes it harder for the brain to remember. You didn't just let him forget, Eleanor, or he stayed forgotten." Nadia stood up at the back of the... She held up her phone. "I'm Nadia Park. I've been investigating this story for 3 weeks. I have the medical records, the paramedic statement, the will amendment, and Dr. Marsh's prescription history. The article goes live in 10 minutes. The ballroom erupted. Vanessa was on it. "This is insane. This woman is a stalker, harassing us for months." David stood up. He'd been sitting at the back, unnoticed. He held up his phone. "I have a video. Julian, you asked me to film the morning of the proposal. In case you messed up." He pressed play. Julian's voice filled the ballroom. Clear, undeniable. "As no, if she runs. Remind me that she's the only thing that wasn't my mother's idea. Remind me that and if she doesn't want me, remind me to let her go." The room was silent. Julian hadn't moved. He was sitting at the head table, hands flat on the white tablecloth, ring in Clara's palm. His face was nothing, blank. Not the blankness of amnesia, but the blankness of a man who has just been told that every single thing he's been 4 months is a lie. Then he stood up. He didn't pick up the ring. He did Clara. He turned to his mom. "Mom," he said. His voice was quiet. The whole heard it anyway. "True?" Opened her mouth, closed it. "Is it true," Julian said, "that you hang on medication to keep me from remembering?" "I was trying to protect you." "From what?" "From her." He looked at Clara, then back at Eleanor. "Or from the fact going to leave your version of my life. That I was going to marry someone you didn't choose. That I was going to be happy without your permission?" "Eleanor." Julian turned to Vanessa. She was silent tears tracked makeup. "Vanessa," he said. "I'm sorry. I don't remember loving you. I don't remember us. I can't marry someone I don't remember choosing." Vanessa didn't say anything. She just picked up and walked out. The room parted her. Julian turned to Clara, looked at her. Really looked at her, like he was seeing her for the first time. So like he was seeing her for the 1,000th time. And the two things were happening. "Remember you." "Not the way you want me to. Not the way I should. I don't remember the bakery or the restaurant, pool or any of it. I don't remember proposing." He paused. "But I remember the video. Remember making it. I remember the of it. Like I was talking to myself. Of something I was afraid I'd forget." He stepped out the table. Walked toward her. Room held its breath. He stopped in front of her. He was close enough that she could smell his cologne. The same one, the one he'd worn first. I don't remember you, he said again. But I want to, if you'll let me. If you'll wait. Clara looked at him. The ring was still in her palm. She could feel its weight, its cold, its reality. She thought about 7 towns and 7 names and a year of name. She thought about a hospital hallway and you. She thought about and help me. She closed her tip in her dress pocket. Okay, she said. But we do it my way this time. No chasing, no controlling, no villas and private investigators and rings that appear out of nowhere. We start over from the beginning, Julian looked at her. And then, slowly, like it was a memory once someone could. He smiled. From the beginning, he said. Behind them, Eleanor was screaming for security. Nadia was typing furiously on her phone. The string quartet had started playing again, uncertainly, or if the party was over, or... Clara took Julian. It was warm. It was real. And for the first time in a year, she didn't feel like running. 3 months later, the rain came back. It was late October in Seattle, the kind of rain that didn't announce itself. You'd look out the window and the sky would be gray and the sidewalks would be wet, and you'd realize it had been raining for 3 days, and you hadn't noticed. Clara noticed. She noticed everything now. She was working at a different coffee shop, this one in Ballard, near the locks, smaller, quieter, the kind of place where regulars brought their dogs and the owner knew your order. She'd gotten the job in June, 2 weeks after the engagement dinner, and she'd kept it. No name changes, no town changes, no running. Julian was in therapy 3 times a week. He'd stopped the lorazepam cold turkey after the dinner, against medical advice, against Eleanor's screaming, against everything everyone told him. And the withdrawal had been brutal. 2 weeks of insomnia, nausea, panic attacks, his brain firing like a miswired circuit board. But he'd done it. And then the memories started to come back, not all at once, not like a movie. In fragments, a smell, sin, and suddenly he was in a bakery in Lacan, watching a woman with flour on her arms knead a song, something old and soft on the radio. And he was in a car, rain on the windows, driving south on I-5 with a woman who wouldn't look at a touch. His hand on someone's waist, and he was by a pool, the sun setting, laughing, his chin on a shoulder that smelled like coconut shampoo. He told Clara about each. He called her or texted her or showed up at the coffee shop and said, I remembered something. He'd sit with him and listen and sometimes cry and sometimes laugh and sometimes just hold his hand while he tried to put a memory into words that wouldn't. They were eating. It was the strangest relationship Clara had ever been, and she'd been in some strange... They went to coffee. She knew, given where she worked, and to movies, and to walks along the Ballard. He'd open doors for her and pull out her chair and ask about her day, and she'd have to remind herself that this was the same man who'd once tracked her to a hair salon in Port Townsend and told her she would. Not just the amnesia, not just therapy. After. And when she talked, he heard her. He didn't just wait for his beak. He asked questions. He remembered things she'd so. He was, by any reasonable standard, a friend. And sometimes did it. She'd lie in bed and think. The man she'd loved. The man who'd chased her up the state. Who'd found her in 7 towns. Who'd said, I'm done chasing like his heart. This new Julian was kind and gentle, respectful. And he didn't. He was a stranger who was trying very hard to be sober Ben. She said as much to Mara one night. Over wine on tape. So what do you want? Mara said. The old Julian? The one who stalked you across Washington state. Want that? I just... Clara's city lights. I want him to remember. I want the person who loved me to still exist. Not this nice guy who's learning to from scratch. Mara quiet for a minute. Then she said, Mara, listen to me. The old Julian were going to be enough. You know, he loved you. But he loved you like a possession. The new Julian, he's learned like a person. That's not a loss. That's the point. Clara didn't answer. She drank the rain. It happened. Clara was behind the coffee shop. Morning rush was over. The radio was playing soft and old. The same song, she realized, that had been playing La Connor. The rain was falling outside, steady and gray, and the shop was empty except for one customer with a laptop. Above the door jingled, didn't look up. She was down the espresso machine. Be with you, she said. Take your time, a man said. Clara's hands still. She knew that voice. She'd know a crowd of 10,000 in a dream grave. But it was different now, less sure. Like the one. She looked up. Julian at the counter. He was soaked, rain dripping from his hair, his sweater dark with water, his shoes leaving the clean floor. He hadn't worn a coat. He'd just walked through the rain from wherever he'd parked, and he's standing there, dripping, looking at her in the room. He said, "Hi." Clara's throat was, "You're wet, I know." He smiled, a small, nervous smile, nothing like she remembered. "I walked from the... I need to think." "About what?" He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box, the same one. He'd given it back to him after the dinner. She'd put the ring in palm and said, and he'd kept it. 3 months. He'd kept it in his pocket, or his desk, or something, and now he opened it. The ring was there, platinum, single stone, fluorescent light of the coffee shop. "Still don't remember." His voice was hoarse. "I don't remember the bakery in Laconer. I don't remember proposing in the kitchen. I don't remember the pool or the restaurant or any of the things. I have feelings, but I don't have the story." He paused, took a breath. "But I remember the last 3 months. I remember you drink your coffee black, no sugar, even though you say you like it sweet. I remember you hum when it rains, always the same song. I remember you laugh and cover your mouth like you're embarrassed by the sound. I remember you told me about your dad, who fixes cars at you kiddo, and your mom, who works at a grocery store and smiles when she's worried about you. I remember all of it. These are my memories, not the ones I lost. The ones I made." Closed the box, held it out to her. "Clara Bennett, I remember asking you to marry me the first time. But I'm asking you now, not because I lost something and I'm trying to get it back, but because I've spent the last 3 months getting to know you, and I want to spend the rest of my doing the same thing. You'll have me." Claire at him. The rain was outside. The radio was playing. The kid in the corner was pretending not to walk. She thought about a year of running. 7 towns, 7 names, a bakery in Laconer, and a ring that appeared out of nowhere, and a hospital hallway, and "Do I know you?" and a library and "Help me," and a ballroom, and "I don't remember you, but I want to." She thought about what Morris. The old Julian was never going to be enough. The new one was learning to love person. Thought about the ring. The first time, he'd put it on her finger and she'd been too shocked to. The second time it back and said, "Not yet." This time, she reached out, took the box, took out the ring. She put her finger. It was cold. "Yes," she said, and then, because it was the whole point. Because she'd spent a month learning to say loud. "This time, I'm nodding. This time I'm choosing to stay." Julian's face. Not a smile. Something bigger. Something that started in his eyes and spread to his mouth, and then he was laughing and crying at the same time. And he came around the counter and he put her. And she put her arms around him. And they stood there in the coffee shop. In the rain. The quiet hum of the radio and the espresso machine. And both afraid the other would disappear. He quietly closed his and left. The bell jingled. The rain kept falling. Clara pulled back just enough to look at Julian. His hair was still wet, were red. He was smiling. "You know, we're going to have to tell your mother." Julian groaned. "Can we elope?" "No, we're doing this properly. Invitations, a venue. Your mother in the front row, seething." He laughed. It was a good sound. Not the she remembered from the pool. Something lighter. Something earned. They sat by the window, the two of them, wearing a piece of coffee cake Clara had that morning. The rain streaked the glass. Outside, Seattle was gray and wet and ordinary. Inside, the coffee was warm and was on Clara's finger, and Julian's hand was in hers. And for the first time in as long as she could remember, Clara Bennett felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not had found her, because she'd finally stopped running.